What happens when you strip away the luxuries of modern life? No Amazon deliveries, no rechargeable flashlights, no stainless steel multi-tools. You're left with the same reality that people in the medieval world faced every single day: survival through resourcefulness. Yet what's fascinating is that, even without factories or digital conveniences, they developed tools so ingenious that many of them remain unmatched in their efficiency, durability, and adaptability. These medieval survival tools weren't products of luxury. They were forged by necessity, built from simple materials but refined by centuries of use. They didn't just get the job done, they shaped the survival strategies of entire communities. And while the world has moved on to synthetic polymers and battery-operated gadgets, these tools still carry lessons for anyone serious about resilience today. Let's walk through some of the most remarkable examples. Tools that were once essential to survival in the medieval age, but are still revolutionary for modern survivalists and history-minded explorers. Few tools illustrate the blend of simplicity and versatility as perfectly as the medieval axe. Not the massive battle axe we imagine from films, but the forest axe or bushcraft axe, a compact, balanced tool designed to serve multiple purposes. This was the medieval equivalent of a survival multi-tool, small enough to carry into the forest, yet heavy enough to fell small trees and split firewood. The axe head was crafted with precision, offering a sharpened edge for cutting and a flat pole at the back that doubled as a hammer. In one day's use, it could chop branches for shelter poles, split logs for a cooking fire, and drive tent stakes into the ground. In essence, it replaced 3 or 4 separate tools with one reliable implement. For medieval farmers, foresters and travellers, it was as indispensable as a modern prepper's survival knife. Today, survivalists still prize this style of axe for its compact utility. Unlike many modern mass-produced tools, the medieval design prioritized balance, edge retention, and multi-purpose use. It teaches us a powerful survival lesson. The best gear isn't always the most complex, but, well, the most adaptable. Once timber was cut, another tool came into play, the draw knife. This deceptively simple blade, with handles on either side, allowed workers to strip bark from logs, shape poles, and craft smooth beams for shelters. In the medieval world, it was central to building wattle and daub huts, furniture, and even farming equipment. Its ability to quickly shape wood made it a quiet but vital architect of survival. Pair that with medieval fire-starting methods, and you see just how advanced their survival toolkit really was. Flint and steel kits were carried by travellers, soldiers, and peasants alike. Unlike matches or lighters, these never ran out. A strike of steel against flint threw sparks onto charred cloth or dried fungus, igniting a fire that could be coaxed into flames with dry tinder. This method was reliable, renewable, and resistant to damp conditions, something every modern survivalist can appreciate when batteries die and fuel runs out. Together, the draw knife and flint and steel showcase really 2 sides of medieval survival ingenuity: the ability to build lasting shelters and the means to create warmth and cook food, all without dependence on modern fuels. For survival, no tool was more closely tied to daily sustenance than the billhook. At first glance, it's just a simple curved blade fixed to a wooden handle, but honestly, its uses were endless. Peasants and foresters used it to clear paths through thick underbrush, cut fodder for animals, harvest small grains, and gather wild greens. The curve of the blade allowed for controlled chopping, making it, well, safer and more efficient than a straight knife for certain tasks. For food processing, the medieval world leaned on tools even more ancient yet still indispensable: the mortar and pestle. Made of stone or wood, this device turned acorns, nuts and seeds into flour, crushed herbs for medicine, and helped preserve foraged food. Grinding by hand may seem tedious by today's standards, but in a survival context it is unmatched in its ability to transform raw materials into edible or medicinal forms without electricity or machinery. These two tools, the billhook and the mortar and pestle, remind us that survival is not just about acquiring food, but about preparing it in ways that sustain health. Medieval survival was deeply tied to processing every available resource, and these tools made it possible. Beyond food and fire, medieval survival hinged on managing water and preserving food for leaner times. Clay vessels, carved wooden barrels and simple leather water skins were the unsung survival tools of the age. They allowed medieval communities to transport, store and protect their most vital resource, water. Unlike fragile modern plastics, these containers were repairable, reusable and biodegradable. Salt-curing smoking racks and underground storage pits extended the life of food. The racks were often simple wooden frames built over slow fires, turning meat or fish into shelf-stable protein. Storage pits, sometimes lined with straw, acted as natural refrigerators long before the invention of iceboxes. These weren't glamorous tools, but they were vital systems of survival, allowing medieval families to weather the long winters without starving. Even today, these techniques retain their value. In the event of power outages or long-term disruption, knowing how to construct a smoke rack or safely store root crops underground could mean the difference between having food and going hungry. When you examine these tools closely, the bushcraft axe, drawknife, flint and steel, billhook, mortar and pestle, water vessels and preservation systems, you begin to realize they are not relics of a bygone age. They are revolutionary precisely because they embody principles modern survival often overlooks: durability, simplicity and adaptability. Medieval survival was not about convenience. It was about stripping life to its essentials and mastering the use of every resource at hand. These tools were designed to last generations, to be repaired rather than discarded, and to work in harmony with the environment rather than against it. For today's survivalists, reenactors and history enthusiasts, reviving this wisdom is more than nostalgic curiosity. It is a roadmap to resilience. The world may be flooded with modern gadgets, but when batteries die, when supply chains falter and when technology fails, the medieval survival toolkit still works. And well, that's the greatest lesson. In survival, timeless simplicity often outperforms fragile complexity. The lost medieval survival tools we've explored today are really only lost because we've chosen to forget them. In truth, their designs, methods and, well, their wisdom are still with us, just waiting to be used. They remind us that survival isn't about stockpiling luxuries, but rather about mastering the tools and techniques that truly endure. So, the next time you see an old axe, a billhook hanging in a shed, or maybe a mortar passed down from generations past, just remember that you're holding a piece of revolutionary technology. Tools that once built homes, fed families and lit fires can still do all that today, with no electricity, no plastics and, honestly, no batteries required. If this journey through the survival tools of the medieval world gave you a new perspective on resilience, history and preparedness, well, make sure to subscribe to Backyard Wisdom and share this with fellow history enthusiasts. There's still so much ancient wisdom to uncover, and together we can keep it alive, not as a relic of the past, but as a guide for the future.